got it. I got it. So the director of the Iowa Hunger Summit is just all over me for being late coming up here to start the program. And since she also controls my schedule and has the keys to my car, I can't ignore her. So, wow. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Governor Reynolds, Chief Justice Cady, Lieutenant Governor Gregg, Attorney General Miller, there he is over here. Bill Northey, Secretary of Agriculture, Bishop Pates, members of the legislature who are here, members of the World Food Prize Council of Advisors, all of you, thank you for being here on World Food Day, in Norman Borlaug, World Food Prize Day in Iowa. We've had this is going to be exciting because they've given me the clicker to control the slides here. So yeah, we'll see. When you become an ambassador in the State Department, they never let you change the slides. This is, it's there, but wow. So we had a great start this morning. Governor Schaefer, Ed Schaefer, thank you for being here with us, all the way from North Dakota. There we had, 5 secretaries of agriculture on the stage, and protesters came in. And I stood up. So when you see the photo on the internet and social media of me, and it looks like I'm holding the anti-GMO banner, what is it? Pictures can't lie, So, but I have to tell you, when I came in 2000 and became president of the World Food Prize, it was a one-day event. Nowhere near this many people showed up for anything. I had a one-person staff, and I had this wonderful woman, Denise Essman, you may know, had a public relations firm. And I was standing there. She hardly knew me. And I said, Denise, you're going to hire the anti-GMO protesters, right? And bring them here. This is the only way we're going to get any press. And the blood drained from her face. I finally said, I'm kidding. But see, here was, so it worked. And although I had paid them more, they were supposed to stay an extra 3 minutes. I don't know what happened. But anyway, I've been wondering all week, who's Alice? So I hope you all found out, and it was revealed what happened this morning in the symposium. I want to also alert you to the Iowa Hunger Directory. It's being carried to me now. It's too heavy for me. Don't let go. People suppose it. But this is the listing of all of the Iowa organizations that are part of our online Iowa Hunger Directory. I know the governor's office is on, and the Secretary of Agriculture, so many others of you. It's a great resource. Madeline Goebel down there is the program director who manages this. And we've got over 500 entities, right? And it's a terrific resource for knowing what's going on about fighting hunger all over our state. We also, I don't know how she carries it by herself, but we also have a gift for all of you, the Hunger Summit Norman Borlaug Day poster. Artist Greg Benson has done this for us, and here's Norm up here, looking down, and I'm sure, as I said, with a big smile on his face about this turnout and that so many people are committed to what was his passion. So have that. You can get them on your way out. I want to say thanks again to Craig Hill, to the Iowa Farm Bureau and Farm Bureau Financial for being a sponsor of this event, helping make it be possible. Wonderful. And I got in the promo this morning with the secretaries, and Secretary Schaefer, we're looking to recruit you for this monument on the Mall in Washington to agriculture. There's something there for all of America's great achievements, except food production and agriculture. And hearing you all speak about it this morning, it should be, right? There should be a monument in Washington about that achievement. And Secretary Northey, when you get confirmed, we'll be coming to see you about partnering on that. So now it's my honor to introduce the governor for her remarks. Governor Reynolds is a terrific and great friend of the World Food Prize. She's been to all our events. She's been to, unless she's out of the country, she's been to every Hunger Summit. She's been to every Laureate Award ceremony, particularly to the Iowa Youth Institute and her passion for STEM and promoting students to be studying in science and technology and engineering and math. But I particularly remember that we were at Iowa State University. We had filled Hilton Coliseum, the floor, with 300 students, 200 plus teachers, all over Hilton magic about STEM, and 2/3 of them were young women there. And we presented a painting to then Governor Branstad, about to be Ambassador Branstad, about China. And I said at that time that in 30 years from now, 29, when Iowa celebrates its bicentennial, there will be two names mentioned for sure as our history is discussed. Governor Ambassador Branstad for being the longest serving governor in the history of the United States, and Governor Kim Reynolds for being the first woman chief executive of our state. So it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce Governor Kim Reynolds.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador Quinn. I just want to say thank you not only for your service to our state, but to our country, and for your role as president of the World Food Prize and continuing to fight the good fight and keeping Dr. Borlaug's memory and really his life's work in the forefront for all of us. It is great to be here at the Iowa Hunger Summit, as you indicated. I have been at almost, I think, every one of the World Food Prize Hunger Summits and events over the past 6 years, and this is the first time as the governor of the great state, and it is of Iowa, and it is a tremendous honor to serve as the governor of this great state. And to really continue to honor the tradition that the previous governors have put in place in supporting the Hunger Summit. I also want to say a special word of thanks to Craig Hill and the Iowa Farm Bureau Federation, as well as the Farm Bureau Financial Services, for serving again as the presenting sponsor for the Hunger Summit. And to Ambassador Quinn and his staff, as we all know, who are the ones that really make things happen and do all the work and really make sure that everything runs smoothly and really puts together a tremendous program. It's so appropriate that this event is taking place on October 16th, which is the World Food Day around the globe, as well as Dr. Norman Borlaug World Food Prize Day here in Iowa. I love seeing all the students that are here. I am passionate about STEM. I got to say hi to most of you, but I know that that was Dr. Borlaug's mission also, to make sure that we continue to inspire the next generation. And so there's even a group from Clear Creek, Amana, I think 5th graders who are here. I believe they're the youngest group. And so they were asking all kinds of questions, and their goal is to have zero food hunger, and they're really doing what they can in their community. So thanks to all the students for being here and doing what you're doing. Confronting hunger is one of those key topics that has consensus among Iowans, regardless of the political leanings. And certainly, this was demonstrated by the previous honorary co-chairs of the first Iowa Hunger Summit 11 years ago. We had Republican governors, Governor Ray and Governor Branstad, Democratic governors, Governor Vilsack and Governor Culver. And so, as I indicated, I'm proud to continue in that spirit. It's marvelous that we have a bipartisan turnout again today with members of the legislature that are present in Iowa. We are proud of our agricultural heritage. We have been blessed with great gifts in terms of land and water and plants and animals. And throughout our state's history, it's those valuable resources that have allowed us to really do what we do, and that's feed the hunger and enhance nutrition far, far beyond our borders. Fighting hunger and feeding the world are two great Iowa legacies, and we've done this due to the research that's been conducted by our prestigious universities and the innovation of our agribusiness companies because of the productivity of our farmers. Our state's heritage is filled with the names of individuals who have been at the forefront of these efforts, from George Washington Carver and Jessie Field Shumbaugh, the mother of 4-H, to President Herbert Hoover and Vice President Henry Wallace, and of course, Dr. Norman Borlaug, the founder of the World Food Prize. Today, we are awarding another great hero, and that's Bishop Pates, the Robert D. Ray Iowa Shares Humanitarian Award. Throughout your work with refugees and sending help and hope to people around the world affected by hunger and natural disasters, you are truly emulating the work by Governor Ray and thousands of Iowans in sending food and medicine to starving Cambodians in 1979. And Dr. Borlaug often quoted a saying, "Peace cannot be built on empty stomachs." And Bishop Pates, I commend you for your efforts to initiate dialogues around the world by highlighting humanitarian issues. I understand that you have made trips to Israel and the Palestinian territories in an effort to promote greater understanding and peace. And I myself just returned from leading a trade mission to Israel, where I actually had the opportunity to meet again with the 2012 World Food Prize laureate, Dr. Hillel. And Dr. Hillel received the World Food Prize in the Iowa State Capitol, presented to him by the Secretary General of the UN after he had been nominated by 3 scientists from Arab and Muslim countries. So it truly was a moment that showed what might be possible in the Middle East, and it happened right here in Iowa. So whenever I walk into the Iowa Gallery at the World Food Prize Hall of Laureates, I am so impressed by the artwork that tells the story of Iowa's agricultural heritage. And this history should motivate all of us today to be inspired by Norman Borlaug's legacy and continue our efforts to ensure adequate and nutritious food for all. And with that, I think I'm going to sign a proclamation, right? Okay. Do you want me to read it?
We're going to bring it to you.
Okay. Do you want me to read it or just sign it? Okay. Well, good, because this is the point where former Governor Branstad would take off his glasses and where I would take my glasses and put them on. But I think we're just going to sign it. So let me sign the proclamation that proclaims today Dr. Norman E. Borlaug World Food Prize Day. Okay. And I think I get to present that to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And will you stay and help
Yep.
me present
Yep.
to Bishop Pates? So, Bishop Pates, could we invite you to come up and join us? So this was on Governor Ray's birthday in September. We gathered at the Hall of Laureates in front of a painting of a Cambodian refugee who was fed by the Iowa Shares program. And we introduced Bishop Pates as the recipient this year of that award, which recalls the great effort and humanitarian efforts by Governor Ray. We do it on his birthday, and looking back, and at the time, recall that it was just 1 month after Pope John Paul II had come here and visited. Now, I think, and Bishop Pates is beloved in the refugee community, and I think there's some refugees here today with Catherine Swoboda. Can you all stand up and over here? Their lives have been touched by Bishop Pates, by others within the diocese, and really by all Iowans on that. So I want to ask Governor Reynolds, if you have Bishop Pates, if you could come here
Sure.
and join us. And over here. Yeah. This is the dictator of Iowa, Jim Heemstra.
Right straight ahead, right out there. Somebody else. Somebody else is dictating to us.
Okay. I think we got them all right?
Thank you.
Governor? Yeah, okay. And you're on.
I am genuinely grateful to Ambassador Quinn, the Ruan family, the World Food Prize for presenting me the 2017 Governor Ray Iowa Shares Award. Thank you also, Governor Reynolds, for your participation in the ceremony, and I want to assure you that our heartfelt prayers and best wishes are with you as you engage the role of leader of the Iowa as its 43rd governor. So we're very happy to be able to be with you. I also want to recognize the refugees who are here with us today from the cathedral. Okay, thank you. Good friends all, and also my colleagues from the Pastoral Center who have been so kind to join us in this celebration. So I am honored and yet humbled by this award, as the state of Iowa has been in the forefront with leaders who have had an encompassing vision when they are called to share Iowa's bounty of food with the hungry. Among the prominent leaders, as was just outlined a little bit before, was President Herbert Hoover, who beginning in 1914 and again in 1945 and 1946, at the behest of President Harry Truman, utilized his organizational skills and compassion to confront widespread hunger in Europe in the desperate years after and during the world wars. The Iowa vision emerged again as Governor Robert Ray, assisted by Ambassador Quinn, welcomed the thousands of Vietnamese refugees. With a coalition of civic and ecumenical leaders, they also provided food for desperate, hungry Cambodians. The theme that emerged at that time was Iowa Shares. Governor Ray's humanitarian instincts were assumed by Norman Borlaug. In his own right, he is credited with saving 2 billion people, which effort was recognized by his receiving the Nobel Prize, as well as the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Gold Medal. Norman Borlaug desired to encourage others to undertake initiatives to diminish the scandal of hunger in the world. His vision was implemented with the partnership of John Ruan in establishing the World Food Prize. The World Food Prize honors those who have exercised leadership in food production and distribution as it applies to the poor and to the hungry. By highlighting the work of NGOs, industrial and government initiatives, religious and humanitarian projects, the World Food Prize facilitates the way to alleviating hunger. Particularly inspiring to me is the World Food Prize Iowa Youth Institute and its program. So many of our youth gathered here today. Bright, young people benefiting from scientific knowledge and a spirit of human solidarity have gone worldwide to accompany poor farmers and communities to improve quality food availability. Many of these young people have been inspired to make this a lifelong career. The Iowa vision, is exemplified by the World Food Prize, is needed today as much as ever. This past summer, after a 50-year hiatus, I visited Karonga, Malawi in Central Africa. Things had not changed much since my initial stay as a deacon preparing for priesthood. The preponderance of housing is yet mud huts, thatched roofs, no running water or electricity. One concession to contemporary times is cell phones. But efforts such as advocated by World Food Prize give people hope. One such project was sponsored by the local government, donors from Iowa, and the Catholic Church. What was entailed was irrigation, pumping water from wells powered by solar energy to enable a farmer to have 2 crops each year instead of 1. Excuse me here. The farmer's subsistence income of $148 is being doubled, and food security is no longer dependent on the vagaries of the climate. The quality of life is immensely improved for people distant from resources. Pope Francis has memorialized the Iowa vision of feeding poor people with the constant refrain, "We are one human family, all brothers and sisters." Iowa Shares did not originate because we are superior, more intelligent, exceptional, or otherwise entitled, but because we have been blessed. I am honored to be guided by the Iowa Shares vision and hopefully in some small way to pass along the blessings to our hungry sisters and brothers. So thank you again. Very honored to be a part of this.
That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Terrific. Terrific. Okay, yes. And we'll give you the folder before you go. Thank you, Bishop Pates, for wonderful inspirational words and that. So I think it's time now to eat, and meals are going to be served. And I want to let you know that they have been donated by... yeah, there's another protest. What is it? Come on, give me a break. That's by. All right, we'll see. Yeah, they've been donated by Alice. No. No, I know. I'm just playing here. I can't get thing to work here. What am I doing wrong, Crystal? See. There, oh, all right. That's, see, I told you when you become ambassador. Anyway, Outreach has sent 406 million meals. That's how many they've been packaged and distributed across the United States, around the world in school feeding programs, particularly in disasters. So in Puerto Rico, other areas that have been hit, in famine in East Africa. And so the food you're going to get here is not very much, and it's the same food that if you were in East Africa in the famine or in a disaster, it'd be brought to you. So, and we have from the Iowa Egg Council some eggs supplement on there. So a little something, a little extra, but the idea is that you'll go away from here not feeling as though you've eaten a regular meal in Iowa, and that hopefully this will convey and instill a sense of empathy. Remember the first one, when Governor Ray was here, Governor Reynolds, and there were different meals everyone got, and he got a glass of corn juice. That was it. That was served in Ghana. It was nutritious, it was quality improved, but it was a glass of corn juice. And he was looking at others, because others had more substantial meals than he did. And then he was looking at me about what had I done. So, you have one of those moments where I grabbed the corn juice, slipped over to him my, after-school meal that you got in someplace in Iowa, and at a program which was much more substantial than a glass of corn juice. And haven't had that. But the eggs are here. And later, have you seen Jimmy Fallon at night with the eggs? And they'll have like a dozen eggs, and 9 of them are hard-boiled, and 3 of them are not. And you take turns if you get the question wrong, and you take it and slap it on your head. So I think aren't a couple of the eggs are not hard-boiled, and so you can play the game at your table if you want. Yeah. No, come on, I'm just kidding, and that. So I'm just filling time while the food's being served, and then we come back and we're going to have the something that is very substantial and nutritious, the keynote address by Diana Aviv. So please, you're probably not going to enjoy your lunch, but enjoy your time being here and communing with us. So I hope everybody's finished your meal, and that I really liked the oatmeal. It was really good. And there, let's thank Outreach for providing the meals. Thank you so much. And let's thank the Marriott staff for doing such a great job and serving it here. I was asked, what are we having for dessert? And there is no dessert. So that's it. But actually, for dessert, we have something wonderful, keynote address by Diana Aviv, the Chief Executive Officer of Feeding America. Feeding America used to be known as America's Second Harvest. Bob Forney came here in 2003 with David Beckman and Eric Schachman from Mazon, the Jewish Response to Hunger, had a symposium session and began our focus on hunger in America. Feeding America, just listen to these numbers. They assist and work with 200 food banks, 60,000 food pantries, provide 4.2 billion meals to 46 million people. 4.2 billion meals. Diana Aviv previously was vice president for public policy at the Washington office of the Jewish Federation of North America. She is, and this is a link to our laureate, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, who's a graduate of Purdue. She is a distinguished visiting practitioner at Indiana University, Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. So it's good we kind of kept you separated from him and that. She was listed by the nonprofit Times of the top 50 individuals for power and influence for the last 14 years. She was born in South Africa, has a Bachelor of Social Work from the University of Witwatersrand, a master's degree in social work for Columbia. It's my honor to welcome her to the World Food Prize and Iowa Hunger Summit, Diana Aviv.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here. What a wonderful room, and so many wonderful people, and such a distinguished table. I must say, it's a great honor, Governor, to be at the same table as you, and thank you for being here. So many people don't stay for the whole meeting, and we really appreciate your being here. It's wonderful to be with so many people who are so passionate about ending hunger in this extraordinary state. And for me in particular, it's special to be here with 7 of my colleagues, talented executives from the Feeding America food banks. If my colleagues wouldn't raise their hands and just say hello so everybody can see you, of course I would ask them to stand, but I don't think they'd listen to me, but just give them a... I encourage you to take a moment to seek out these incredible professionals and to say hello for them. I'm sure they will rope you into doing some volunteer work, and that's how it should be. But they're doing an amazing job, and I'm so proud that they're a part of the Feeding America network. Before I begin my formal remarks, I'd like to salute and thank our hosts, the World Food Prize. This summit, now in its 11th year, has become the go-to place for learning the best practices and hearing the latest on the legislative front. And Ambassador Quinn, I am not surprised. I had an opportunity to do a sidebar with him this morning for a few minutes, and I learned about his work in Cambodia. They had to drag me away because I wanted to hear a lot more about the connection between food and agriculture and peace, and that there is a connection. So we look to you for another 17 years of work in this area. Now, speaking of plenaries and so on, this morning's plenary was utterly spectacular. I must say that to be able to have a once-in-a-lifetime glimpse into the policy world of the United States Department of Agriculture and to hear from secretaries of agriculture share their thoughts and to see how, regardless of political affiliation, how many areas in common there were, that being placed in that kind of sense of a role of responsibility, that you had more in common than you did have in regard to differences. What was also wonderful about listening to that discussion, since I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C., is the civility with which that conversation was held. Even with differences, it didn't matter. I mean, differences, of course, matter, but it was possible for us to listen and to think seriously about the different arguments rather than to be defensive and take sides. So thank you, Mr. Secretary, one left, for the wonderful plenary that we had this morning. Now, this afternoon, I'd like to address the state of hunger across America and then several critical trends that are reshaping the landscape of hunger in the United States. And I'm going to begin with a small town in rural Iowa, about 2 hours northeast of where we sit here today. And living there is Kim and Brian, who were actually living the dream. Brian had a steady job at a large, iconic American company that had been for decades booming and had been the booming economic engine of the entire community. The couple had, to quote Kim, hit the jackpot. Brian's factory job brought in good money, enough so that Kim only had to work part-time and could happily focus her energies on raising their 5 daughters. In 2015, the family's prospects changed overnight. Brian's employer folded. The factory closed its doors. He lost his job, along with many others in the town. Kim said of that time, and I'm quoting her, "And just like that, we went from having more than enough to wondering where we would get the next meal. Looking back on it," says Kim, "I can say that that winter was the toughest of our lives." Now, fortunately, the company heard about a local food pantry at a resource meeting held for all the newly unemployed neighbors. They had never known this experience before. Kim began visiting it, usually at the end of the month, to pick up fresh fruit, veggies, meat, and particularly when money was tight. Since then, luckily, Brian has found some work as a truck driver, not paying the same as what he used to earn. Kim continues to work part-time, but is hoping for a full-time job at a local school. It's not available at the moment. She knows that jobs in small rural towns aren't as easy to come by, but Kim remains optimistic. And she knows that the food pantry will be there for her in more ways than one. She said, and I quote her, "We're appreciative of the food and we're appreciative of the family and of the friendly smiles and greetings that we receive each time we walk through the door. The food pantry played a huge role in getting my family through a really tough time, and I'm thankful it was there when we needed it most." Now, many of you know that hard-working neighbors like Kim and Brian, many of you may even know such people, people trying to cobble together a decent life for their children while routinely facing impossible choices between food and bills. Such decisions are the norm for people served by our nationwide network of 200 food banks and 60,000 food pantries, soup kitchens, meal programs, and other agencies. Feeding America's national study, Hunger in America, found that 69% of these folks have to choose between food and utilities. They have to choose, or 57% have to choose between food and housing. Some folks like Kim and Brian are set back by a job loss from which they've not fully recovered. But others, as you can imagine in California and in our southern states, were hit by a natural disaster, such as back-to-back storms that we've seen, Harvey, Irma, Maria, and Nate, or the wildfires of California. And still others have suffered a debilitating injury that has prevented them from working. Just about all lack the kind of network, family or friends who can help out when times are tough. That is what we have found. Now, I joined Feeding America just over 2 years ago, and since then I've visited every state in the Midwest, Sorry, except for the Dakotas and Wisconsin. I will go there. Just invite me and I'm there. I'd love to come. That includes many trips to Chicago, the home of one of our 2 national headquarters. Along the way, I've talked with and I've listened to scores and scores of people who use our services in the Midwest and beyond, the people who are on those pantry lines. And what struck me about them by the mountain is the mountain of obstacles that they wrestle with every single day. I must tell you that when I hear some of their stories, I wonder if I would be able to do it. I can't tell you how many times they told me about getting a flat tire on the way to work or not having enough money to fill their gas tank, which causes them to lose their job. It's a domino effect. Others have talked about working multiple part-time jobs. A sudden shift change by one employer ripples across their lives, upending their already fragile daycare arrangements. I'm also struck by how many of them feel ashamed. We heard this on the panel this morning, feel ashamed of having to depend on public assistance and our help. For us all, values like hard work and independence are prized. What I have seen written across these individuals' faces is fierce determination to get back on their feet and find a way to give back to others. To a person, they are eager to become self-sufficient and independent of government or our assistance. And even while getting help, they want to earn it by volunteering at the pantry or distributing some food to neighbors who couldn't make it to the pantry. I'll never forget seeing someone say to me, "You know, you think that I'm really badly off," and he didn't seem to have much at all. He said, "But there are people on my street who are much worse off, and at least I can share what I take from the pantry with them. They can't even get here." These folks are to me an eternal reminder that the work that we are all doing is not only profoundly meaningful, it is vital for millions of people. In America today, 1 in 8 don't get enough nutritious, healthy food on a regular basis. That's now an astounding 41 million people, including 13 million children and 5 million seniors. Hunger plagues every county and every congressional district across all 50 states, plus the territories, and the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. It ranges from a low 3% in Grant County, Kansas, to a high 38% in Jefferson County, Mississippi. Its scope is simply staggering. The state of hunger in America is wholly unacceptable. I am sure you agree with me. We're a nation filled with countless resources, immense wealth, and generous citizens, and yet 12% of all U.S. households are food insecure. That translates to a whopping 15.6 million homes, which is 13 times the number in Iowa. Now, at this point, you might be wondering how your state stacks up against the national figures. Compared to the country as a whole, we estimate that Iowa is home to a smaller share of individuals who are food insecure, something to celebrate indeed. And the estimated cost to purchase a meal in Iowa is lower than the national figures as well. But that said, hundreds of thousands of people here remain at risk of hunger, and well over 100,000 of them are likely to be ineligible to receive public nutrition assistance. This is why, even in Iowa, food insecurity continues to be a serious problem, and why the work of charitable food assistance, what many of you do day in and day out, is so vitally important. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, the share of households in Iowa estimated to be food insecure in 2016 was 10.7%, which, by the way, good news, is lower than the national average, which unfortunately was at 13% for the same year. Now, however, Iowa's state rate of food insecurity has remained essentially the same for recent years at 10.7% in 14, 15, and 16. We estimate that 38% of food insecure population in Iowa earn more than 185% of the poverty line, and thus are unlikely to qualify for most federal nutrition assistance programs. So to put that in perspective, a family of 4 with an income of $46,000 is likely to be ineligible for SNAP, WIC, the programs we heard talked about this morning, and child nutrition programs, even if they are food insecure. This means that compared to the country as a whole, a higher share of Iowans need to rely on food banks and agencies just to make ends meet. In Iowa, the majority, 54% of people estimated to be food insecure, are likely to qualify for SNAP. However, 38%, or more than 144,000 individuals, are estimated to live in households with incomes that are likely to disqualify them for these programs. Now, if you want to learn more about how Iowa compares to the nation, I encourage you to visit our free online interactive map of the United States. In your browser, type in www.feedingamerica.org or Google Map the Meal Gap, and you'll be able to click on all 99 counties in Iowa. So where do we go from here? If we agree that the state of hunger in Iowa, the Midwest, and across the nation is unacceptable, how can we put ourselves in a stronger position to fight hunger? I'll answer that by recognizing how quickly and radically the world is changing around us. For our purposes today, I'm going to zero in on 4 specific trends that are impacting the food industry and, in turn, our work in alleviating hunger. And these 4 trends are last-mile efficiencies, technological advances, changing funder expectations, and the social safety net. At Feeding America, we've been exploring these trends for well over a year. This was part of a broader commitment to identify challenges and opportunities ahead for both our national organization and our network of food banks. We zeroed in on the 4 trends most likely to affect our ability to solve hunger today and into the future. And I think that these trends are relevant in some way to us all, any of us involved in the struggle to end hunger. So the first trend, last mile efficiencies, is indicative of the many disruptions we are seeing across all industries and all sectors. For us, in the world of food supply, you can't ignore one of the biggest change agents in our field. It was mentioned this morning. Anybody remember what company was called out this morning? Amazon, which is radically changing online purchasing and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. This past summer, the giant retailer disrupted the grocery sector overnight with its purchase of Whole Foods for nearly $14 billion. As Amazon moves forward, we can expect it to drive food costs down, offer more direct delivery services, and track inventories tighter than we've ever seen. Such changes, among others, are resulting in what author Matt Gutenworth called the greatest disruption in the food industry in over 50 years. As Amazon and other online food retailers forge ahead, traditional food companies are challenged. At the same time, they themselves are taking aim at zero waste targets, a change that will broadly impact sourcing models across the field of hunger relief. We're very good at harnessing excess food. In other words, as businesses become more efficient over time, we will have less surplus food available to donate. There won't be less food overall, but it will likely to be different kinds of food that's available. For example, more prepared foods. We're also seeing a change in traditional supermarkets. You might notice that center aisles are shrinking, and both prepared food and fresh produce sections of those supermarkets are expanding. Now, finally, let me mention 2 additional changes in the food delivery system. The first is the growing popularity of new and nimble delivery services like Blue Apron, HelloFresh, that sidestep traditional grocery retailers, shipping food directly to consumers' front doors, so there's no opportunity for us to capture the excess. The second is a little bit more futuristic. Tom Blishock from the Dialogic Group is an expert on food retail, and he talks about companies investing in new delivery systems such as drones and driverless vehicles. And in light of these changes, organizations like ours are deeply committed to ensuring there is enough food today for people facing hunger, and to question what changes we need to make now to shorten lines everywhere. And driving the pace of the change in our lives, of course, is technology, and that's the second trend that I want to address. Just 2 weeks ago, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal that reported on how often the average person checks his or her cell phone every day. Any guesses out there how many times we check our cell phone every day? Not bad. Someone said 40, but in fact, it's a whopping 80 times a day. That means we stare at that little computer in our hands about 30,000 times over the course of a year. Technology has changed how we socialize with one another. Remember all those people you bump into and complain under your breath because they're looking at their cell phone walking down the street? How we rent cars and catch rides, how we read the day's headlines, how we shop for clothing, book a flight, or buy groceries. Online platforms will continue to disrupt the world of food. Last year, for example, about 3% of US food was bought digitally online. In 2025, we expect that number to jump to at least 20%. That's if we can predict that fast. Technological advances have already reshaped how food is manufactured and stored. In the past, many food products were made and stored until consumers were ready to buy them. That's a traditional supply and demand model. But today, demand often drives supply. With the click of a mouse, consumers dictate when, where, and how they'd like to purchase groceries. Millions of orders are placed 24/7 and are shipped within moments. Along the way, big data helps track items with near pinpoint accuracy as they travel through vast logistical chains coast to coast. Shipping errors are automatically rerouted and problems with items are detected and corrected. The shared economy, or the exchange of skills and resources online, is yet another example of the way in which our world is changing rapidly. And here I want to offer you examples that include things like time banking and lending circles. Time banking lets people swap time and skills instead of money. People complete tasks, bank their hours, and exchange them for needed services. It's all managed through web-based software systems and mobile apps like Our World, which is funded through a National Science Foundation grant. Our World currently has something like 45,000 members, and they're in over 720 communities. Lending circles offer financial security and asset building to individuals with little or no credit history and limited liquid assets. So a lending circle is simply a group of people who chip in every month, or some other predetermined framework, to lend money to one another at no interest. One nonprofit called Mission Asset Fund uses technology to administer, scale, and support lending circles in partnership with another 50 nonprofits in 17 states. And today they have served over 7,000 borrowers, and so on and so forth. The reason I share this with you is that in this shared economy, there are opportunities. In fact, in the coming years, the sharing economy and computing power will likely accelerate. And the key for us will be using technology to capture food sooner, differently, or tapping new food streams. One possibility involves capturing much more wasted food. In the United States, about 40% of all food grown, processed, and transported is not consumed. That's a whopping 70 billion pounds of good, safe, edible food that could be used to feed hungry people. I believe that ending food waste is a golden opportunity that we might all consider exploring more fully. Our collective ability to help feed people depends, as you know, also, not just on everything that I've described so far, but also people investing in our work, otherwise known as funders. And that leads me to our changing funder expectations, which we think is a very important trend to pay attention to. At Feeding America, we are seeing changes from various stakeholders who are expressing a keen interest in seeing evidence-based outcomes, not just measurable outputs. Said differently, it seems that no longer is it enough to measure the number of meals, even as impressive as 4.2 billion meals is, but also what difference it made to the people that we served. Some donors are more interested in moving the needle on hunger or on any issue specifically by showing the impact we are having on people's lives. These outcomes are certainly challenging to capture, but they do in fact help paint a more holistic picture of an organization, all of our organizations' impact. We're also seeing a movement that's more donor-centric than we've seen in the past. Said differently, some funders want to become more involved in the formulation and execution of operational strategies. Many, especially younger donors, are willing to put substantial resources behind efforts if they believe that those efforts can make a difference. And they want to be there and see it with their eyes and their hands, every part of them. Now, I've got a colleague who works very closely with the ultra-wealthy. And when I talk about the ultra-wealthy, I'm talking about people who've got assets of at least $5 billion or more. And he told me recently that many of them express a genuine interest to improving the world and that they want to use their assets in service of that. But at the same time, they're exceedingly hesitant about stepping up to the plate. They fear that they might choose the wrong issue or invest in the wrong way, so they're holding back. Allowing them to roll up their sleeves and lean into organization activities is not only a traditional donor model, but we think that it is a great way to engage them and to let them see for themselves firsthand that it's really worth their time. Now, I know you're all going to say, great, and some of you are going to come at the end of this talk and say to me, can we meet some of those donors, please? We're happy to show them, to have them roll up their sleeves. Changing donor expectations for us as hunger relief organizations means that we must work harder to understand what is motivating funders, how to engage them differently, and how to measure overall outcomes rather than just outputs. That's no easy task, I know. Just ask the folks in this room who raise funds for a living or who've invested incalculable hours competing for limited funds from stakeholders with their own ideas about what's needed. Our collective work in fighting hunger is immensely important in the big picture. But I must tell you that with all of the great work that we at Feeding America and many of you in this room do, and all of our food banks and pantries and everybody who's involved, that it all pales in comparison to the reach of federal, state, and local governments. And that's the last trend that I'd like to address today, and that's our social safety net. This morning's panel with the U.S. Secretaries of Agriculture, I think, was extraordinary. In fact, I'm really glad I came for that reason alone. It was just an amazing panel. And of course, for me in particular, it's great to see Secretary Vilsack because he is a member of our board of directors. Although I think I'm kind of grateful he's not here right now. For our purposes this afternoon, I'd like to focus on the next farm bill, which needs to be reauthorized by September 30th of next year. The Farm Bill is our nation's largest legislative vehicle that addresses food production, including food assistance, and impacts every community. While there are never any guarantees when it comes to legislative work, one thing we do know is that the Farm Bill happens down the center of the aisle in Washington, D.C. Our nation's growers and producers, nonprofits that address hunger, and rural development advocates must all work together and do to ensure support for a farm bill that can help ensure access to the food and resources that people and communities need. And while there's a worry that the pressures to cut spending could result in a loss of critical food assistance for millions of people, I'd like to focus on the opportunities we have to work together to achieve meaningful bipartisan legislation. The challenges facing many of the core issues covered in the Farm Bill are significant. For those struggling with food insecurity, they are facing an economic recovery that for many of them has been uneven. Although the national unemployment rate has fallen, and we are incredibly grateful for that, food insecurity and the need for food assistance remain intractably high and has not fallen as fast. The number of people who qualify for SNAP has fallen faster than anticipated, which is a good thing, as the workforce participation has increased, but many must still depend on food assistance. Our nation's food producers have also been dealing with challenges, including the imbalance between food production and markets, as well as natural disasters that have impacted their harvests, including wheat in Kansas, cotton in Texas, and citrus in Florida. And rural communities nationwide, as many of you well know, are wrestling with inconsistent job opportunities and a significant need for resources to fight the opioid crisis. 3 weeks ago, we were honored to have 2 representatives from our system, from our network, testify before the Senate Agriculture Committee. Both made a strong case to preserve SNAP and also to strengthen TFAP, the Federal Commodities Program, and invest in public-private partnerships with growers. If the next Farm Bill proceeds as it has in the past, which for us means essentially on a bipartisan basis to protect federal nutrition programs, it would give policymakers on both sides of the aisle a much-needed win. Now, wouldn't that be nice? In the meantime, I urge everybody in this room to remain vigilant about protecting federal nutrition programs, especially as we see efforts to cut food assistance. While we'll continue to seek bipartisan victories, I don't want to underestimate the difficulties in the current political climate. And I do know a little bit about that because, for good or ill, I live in downtown Washington, D.C. We all do well to continue telling the story of how agriculture and nutrition must work together to enact the strongest farm bill possible. To me, that means telling our story and making sure that our public officials understand the critical role that we and public nutrition programs continue to play to combat hunger. I encourage you to invite all of your elected representatives to volunteer at your local organizations. There is nothing like getting your hands into this work to understand what it means. And I think that volunteering is a terrific way to see this firsthand. You'll also find, if you're interested, a wealth of advocacy materials on the Feeding America website. Before closing, let me underscore the importance of the work that all of you do every day in this field and related fields. At the same time, I think we all agree that the level of hunger in every state in America is unacceptable, but it's not insurmountable. If we position our organizations correctly, we can take advantage of the many disruptions taking place across the food industry. Acting on them will certainly carry risk, but will also present great opportunities. The key, I believe, is leaning into the trends in the last mile efficiencies, in technology, in funder expectations, and the social safety net to help benefit people like Kim and Brian and all of the folks that you serve. You know your communities far better than anyone, and I have every confidence that every one of you and the people with whom you connect every day can find even better ways to fight hunger and eradicate it in Iowa and beyond. Thank you very much.
Diana Aviv, let's have one more round of applause for what, 4.2 billion, that's a lot. And that. So of course, the Hunger Summit's not over. We have afternoon programs, but I have one announcement I want to make. Don't hide, come over here. That Crystal Harris has been the director of the Hunger Summit, in addition to running our George Washington Carver intern program, in addition to assisting me. And we have now a spot in our staff that's opened up that's so critically important, being the director of our Borlaug Rouen International Internship Program, looking after those 18 and 17-year-old students that we send abroad. And our director has retired from that, and so at the end of today, Crystal Harris will become the new director of the Borlaug Rouen International Internship Program. And I only let her go because Madeline Goebel is here and has been managing our hunger directory, and she is going to become the new director of the Iowa Hunger Summit. So thank you for what you've produced today and what will continue. And now you can tell everybody about the afternoon.
So my last proclamation in order as director of the Iowa Hunger Summit is to encourage everyone to attend the breakout sessions. They're going to happen right after this. As Ms. Aviv mentioned, talking about food waste, we have panels, breakout sessions focused on food waste to child nutrition, donation gardens, child nutrition, partnering with schools for healthy food in our school district. So there's a wide range of topics for everyone to be a part of. I encourage you to go check them out and find out, indeed, how you can take the fight against hunger to the next level here in our state. Thank you.